Kane, my pup is about 6 months old and just runs around like a loony when on a freedom session, but good as on a long line. What do you think I should do? I haven't had much time to train with crap weather and work. Kane, go and listen to the last video that I just put up. It's a question from Andrew, and it's called What to Do When Your Dog Doesn't Listen. And it's basically a rant about, like, you've got to train, man. You have to train, and you have to train properly, and you've got to do it properly, and you have to be patient. And, like, my pup's 6 months old, it runs around like a loony when on a freedom sessions, but is good on a long line. Honestly, man, go and listen to that other video, what to do. I just put it up. It's the one before this one. What to do when my dog doesn't listen, because it's all there. It really is really important for you to listen to that. And, at the end of that video, I spoke about two extreme ends of the scale and mindset of hunting. One extreme end is just take them hunting, bro. They'll be sweet. So basically don't train at all. It's time on the hill, bro. It'll be sweet. And the other extreme end is like some guy on an estate that all he does is train dogs, and he's on a salary anyway, and he takes 3 years to train his pointers. And by the way, the guy at that end taking 3 years to train a pointer is way more right than the guy at the other end that's just like, it's just time on the hill, bro, just take it hunting. And in that video, I had the whole rant about how I was around dogs 15, 20 years, and I'd learned enough to know that I didn't know how to do it. And when I started studying people that did know how to do it, the first and most extreme marked difference was that they were actually training a lot for a long time, and I wasn't. It's like there's two big leaps that to get from that end of she'll be sweet, bro, just go hunting, it's just time on the hill, bro, and this guy over here that's taking 3 years to train a pointer. One is you need to know what to do. You need okay. But then you have to want to actually do it. All of the stuff on what to do is in the blueprint. It's all there, man. It's all there. And if you're in the inner circle asking this question, it's all there. Now you just have to do it. And it's actually quite a big undertaking. There's not that many things other than like going to work every day or going to school every day. As far as like a responsibility and like a task, a long-term thing that you have to do well consistently for a decent period of time, in these days, there's not that many things out there that a lot of people are doing as big an undertaking as training a dog properly. It's actually, you can't just like wishy-washy fumble your way through it. Is actually, the blueprint's a 15-hour video series with lots of different elements and parts to it. In the previous video, I had a big rant on that too, on all how you do all of the different parts all in isolation all the way through. But 6 months old running around like a loony on a freedom session, that's what a 6-month-old pup does. And that's why we train. And that's why we use a long line. You're saying the dog's good when it's on a long line and training. What do you think? The dog runs around like a loony when on a freedom session, good as gold on a long line when I'm training her. What do you think I should do? I think you should keep training, because it's just a time thing, man. 6 months old is really, really young. You've got a lot of training to go. You've got a lot of training to go, man. And I literally just did this Q&A and I looked over at the end of it and I didn't have my sound recording. So I'm doing it again. But another thing I've got here is because you're saying my pupa's 6 months old, just runs around like a loony when on a freedom session, but as good as gold on a long line when training. First of all, that's exactly what a 6-month-old dog is like. Second part of the question is, what do you think I should do? I haven't had much time to train with crap weather and work. So another note I've got here is be careful not to neglect training too much and let them get away with too much while off the long line. Because if you do that, you create too much of a contrast. And if you're not training enough and the dog's having lots of freedom sessions off the long line and running around like a loony, you'll create a dog that knows when it's off the long line, and you'll ingrain that habit. Whatever, practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. So whatever you're practicing, you're making permanent. So if the dog's running around like a loony off the long line all the time and you're not training enough, that's what you're practicing. And that's why it's so important to train consistently, particularly early on. Really important. And my next note is put on a raincoat and a head torch and go and train. And I've done that a lot, and I know what it's like in the winter when it's short days, long nights, and it's probably dark when you get home from work. And it might be raining. And man, if the weather has been crap too. We have had some runs lately where it's been pretty freaking wet, man, pretty consistent. We had a while there about a month ago where we had 3 or 4 weeks of pretty crap weather, man. It was wet. Pretty consistently raining. In periods like that, you've got to put the raincoat on and go hunt and go training. You have to. And if it's dark, you've got, and people do, I've done it a lot, and I know lots of people do it in the winter. A guy's been sending me videos recently. He's out training. Well, actually, he's under lights at a big sports grounds, and there's big lights there. It's all lit up. If you haven't got that, you've got to put the head torch on. And if it's always raining, you've got to put a raincoat on and a head torch on, and you've got to go train. Even if it's a short session and you've got to towel the dog off later, dry the dog off with a towel, you get back wet, take your raincoat off. It only takes a couple of minutes to dry a dog off with a towel for it to go in its kennel or come inside. But if you're at that period, man, 6 months old with a dog, and you're like, oh, I'm not really training, it's pretty loose off the long line, and I don't know, what do I do? You've trained, man. You've got to train. My final note, you got to train, man. You really do, and you've got to be consistent with it, and you've got to do a lot. You've got to do everything that's in the blueprint. All of those things are so important. That previous question was, my dog's really good at home, and it's not that good when I take it out in the bush. It's like, well, did you train it? Have you done all the stuff that's in there? Because there's a lot in there, including training it in the bush so it's good when you get into the bush. And, you can't skip it. And you've got to understand and have that mindset right of like what you're doing, and do it properly and do enough of it. It's really important. I've had this talk lots of times in Q&As on the podcast. Watch your head. If you're at 6 months old and you're like, the dog runs around like a loony but's good on the long, well, that's good, man. That it's good on the long, good as gold on the long line. That's good. Keep training, do more. Give the dog more training sessions and less freedom sessions. Replace loony freedom sessions with good structured training sessions. That's what's gonna give you a good dog, man. Replacing proper training sessions with loony freedom sessions is going to give you a loony dog. That's difficult. You've got to do it all of the bush work. And I went over it in the last video. I'll link that last video off the end of this, and I'll also put it in the description. But if you're on the podcast, what to do when your dog doesn't listen, it's the one before this. Done.